So, what really makes a law work? It's not about how fancy the language is. It all comes down to whether breaking it has real, predictable consequences. That's the big idea we're going to dig into today: the law of consequence. Let's just kick things off with a fundamental question. Think about it. If you can run a red light or ignore a major regulation with absolutely zero repercussions, was there really a rule in the first place? And that idea leads us right into our first big point, this strange paradox of the overregulated state. We're going to look at how a place can be buried under mountains of laws, but almost none of them are actually put into practice. India makes for a really fascinating case study here. And here you can see that contrast, just laid bare. On paper, the laws are abundant, they're super detailed, they're strict, but in reality, they often end up feeling more like, well, friendly suggestions, things that are negotiable, uncertain, things you can probably get around. And the fallout from this? Well, this quote just nails it. This gap doesn't just create a bit of chaos. It's a relentless teacher. It teaches citizens day in and day out that the rules don't really matter. What matters is who you know, or maybe just how long you can drag things out. So what you end up with then is this really dangerous illusion. You see, just because a law is written down somewhere, it doesn't mean the rule of law actually exists. Let's take a second to break down what that term really means. Here's the crucial distinction. The rule of law isn't about having a library full of legal books. It's about predictability. It's the simple, rock-solid confidence that if a rule is broken, a specific and timely consequence is going to follow, every time. And you can actually see how this changes the way people think. Their whole internal calculation shifts. The question is no longer, is this the right thing to do, or is this legal? It becomes a much colder question: will I get caught? And will anything actually happen if I do? Let's just walk through how this lesson gets hammered home. So somebody breaks a rule. The case gets into the system, where it can just sit for years, sometimes decades. By the time a decision finally comes down, the connection between the action and the consequence has totally evaporated. Wrongdoing just becomes a gamble with fantastic odds. And then, to pour a little salt in the wound, enforcement is often really selective. Maybe there's a big crackdown for a week after some incident hits the news, or it all depends on who you are. This creates a kind of moral fog. The law stops feeling like an ethical guidepost and starts feeling more like just another tactical obstacle you have to navigate. And all of this, it snowballs into an even bigger problem. Because when consequences are a total question mark, the entire concept of deterrence, the very thing that's supposed to stop bad behavior before it even starts, it just completely collapses. For a law to actually stop people from doing something, it really needs three things. You need certainty that you'll be caught. You need speed, so the consequence comes quickly. And you need proportionality, meaning the punishment fits the crime. But as we've been seeing, the reality on the ground is often the exact opposite, isn't it? Consequences are uncertain, they are painfully slow, and they are wildly inconsistent. The system basically strikes out on all three counts, and when that happens, deterrence is just gone. I mean, this quote really hits hard because it's so true. If a law doesn't actually change how people behave in the real world, then what is it? It's just words on paper. It becomes decoration like wallpaper. It's there, but it doesn't do anything. Okay, so yeah, that's the problem. But it's not all doom and gloom. How do you actually fix this? The key isn't to write more laws. The key is to make the laws you already have actually matter. And this right here, this is probably the single biggest takeaway for how to fix this. It is not about severity. Huge, scary penalties that almost never get enforced, they don't work. What works is predictability. A small, certain, and swift penalty is way more effective. Think about it. It's the certainty of getting a speeding ticket, not the massive size of the fine, that actually makes you slow down. So the path forward is all about building a system that's functional, not necessarily perfect. That means separating everyday stuff like traffic violations from the huge court cases. It means automating things, like with traffic cameras, to take bias out of the equation. You've got to put strict time limits on legal processes. And maybe most important of all, you focus on enforcing the rules uniformly for everyone, not just with big dramatic crackdowns. So as we start to bring this all together, I want you to try thinking about this in a new way. Think of consequence as a form of communication. It's the language a society uses to tell its own people which rules are real and which ones are just for show. At the end of the day, you can't just tell people to respect the law out of some sense of patriotism or fear. Respect for the law is learned through experience. When people see day after day that the rules are applied fairly and consistently to everyone, their behavior just naturally adjusts. That's how you build trust. Because without that clear consequence, what is a law? It's just noise. And you know what we all do with noise, right? Eventually, we just learn to tune it out. So I'll just leave you with this question to chew on. Look around your own community, your own city. When a rule is stated, does it actually have a clear, predictable voice? Or is it just more noise?